Hello, everyone. Today we have with us Larry Carnell from Benetrends Financial. Larry has processed over 3 combined decades of award-winning franchise and business ownership, managerial development, and advisory expertise. Larry has helped thousands buy, sell, fund, manage, and strategically exit their business. Larry is a recipient of international and national awards, including Entrepreneur of the Year Award. He has been a frequent speaker, instructor, and trainer for numerous organizations, including universities and associations, with their respective seminars and conferences. He is actually our go-to person for funding a new business, a new franchise, and for a good exit strategy. But I'll let Larry go over all that with you. Tell us about yourself, how you got into this, and how you help people grow and exit their business.
Well, thank you, Greg. It's an honor to be here to speak with you and your potential clients and what have you. My background is accounting and finance. I've owned several businesses myself. In this new economy, I believe there's a major paradigm shift happening. It's not enough to build wealth nowadays. The successful entrepreneur has to understand how to accumulate, accelerate, protect wealth, and mitigate taxes. And if you don't use the tax code and wealth protection strategies to do that, in this new economy, even if you've accumulated a lot of wealth, that wealth can be taken from you with healthcare, liability risk, and other things. And so I believe the best long-term strategy for a successful entrepreneur is to use the tax code and those strategies to help you do that. If you want to be successful, do what successful people do. Wealthy people have the advantage of hiring people to tell them things and give them access to programs that the majority of Americans don't have access to. And so the reason Greg and I work together is we're focused on not just helping somebody get into a business, but helping them understand how to structure a business so that when they exit the business, they're not giving decades of just some tax collector or some creditor. And that's what we're here to discuss today.
Perfect, Larry. So when I'm looking to get into a business or I'm looking to buy a business and I come to you, what are you looking for from me as far as credit ratings, background? Where does my money need to be? Where do I need to put it? How do we structure all that to begin with?
Benetrends, we're the nation's #1 one-stop funding resource. The benefit for candidates is that unfortunately, if you go to a bank only wants to sell you financing, they'll often try to get you to borrow as much money as possible. That may not be the best option. Debt is rarely a benefit to a business owner. But with the current low interest rates, I don't have as much of a problem with people borrowing money. Much of what I've done is lecture across the country with business experts like Susie Orman, Dave Ramsey, Robert Kiyosaki, and people that understand that debt is not always a friend to a business owner. But with lower interest rates, it could be a good alternative or a good opportunity to get financing at a lower cost than what we've seen in years past. So I often encourage a combination of programs, but you've got to work with somebody who has several options to help customize a program to maximize your ability to get the necessary capital to acquire the type of business you want, but at the same time minimize your exposure to overhead and other things. So with Benetrends, we use an assessment program to determine what your financial reach is. We look at things like your credit score, your post-close liquidity. That's a major issue with lenders today, is do you have enough money after the business is up and running to pay for personal living expenses, out-of-pocket expenses, not just to pay for your rent and utilities, but also to run the business with working capital. Most FDDs include about 3 months of working capital. But the concern with a lot of lenders today is that lenders are concerned with COVID and other factors, that it could take longer for businesses to get to a point of profitability. And so they often want to see a person have extra working capital. Now, with an SBA loan, they often want you to come up with anywhere from 10 to 30% down payment. If we're looking at around 20%, you've got to have the 20% down payment, but you may also need another 15 to 20% in post-close liquidity to maintain your standard of living and keep the business afloat while you're getting off the ground.
That makes sense. Yeah, you definitely want to have enough money to support yourself for a while and keep that business going as well. So you talked about SBA loans, but you also have a couple of other options for them as well, which is rollover for businesses and a RAPS program that not too many people know about. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. I just said if you could mention a little bit more about the ROBS program, the RAPS program, how they're a little bit different from your standard loan, and what's involved with those and how they help people get into business.
Yeah, again, we're a one-stop funding resource. We do all kinds of funding, SBA, microloans, unsecured, security-backed lending. But a lot of people are very excited about a program that allows people to use their retirement funds penalty to use those funds in combination, either alone or in combination with an SBA loan. Most people know me as the guy that introduced the ROBS, and both the RAP program helped to introduce these programs to the very first franchise, the very first business acquisition ever done decades ago. It's now become one of the fastest growing forms of funding in the country. There's two programs. One is called the ROBS program, or the Rainmaker plan. That was introduced actually in 1982 by Benetrends, by an ERISA attorney by the name of Lynn Fisher, who started Benetrends. My claim of fame is that I heard about this program and I started talking about it to the franchise community in the 1990s. And then Lynn Fisher asked me to join the company. Literally within 2 years, we tripled the revenue of the company and it just exploded. But then in the late 1990s and in the last 20 years, a new product called the RAP, or Roth Advantage Plan, has exploded in popularity. It's literally preferred up to 10-to-1 by CPAs over the ROBS program. It's exclusive to Benetrends. This program has a very distinct, with the ROBS program, the basic ROBS program, you're able to use your retirement funds. Let's say you've got $100,000 in your retirement funds. You can use that money tax, penalty, debt-free to buy a business in either a loan or in combination with an SBA loan. Let's say the business does well 10, 20 years from now, selling it for $1 million. That money then would go into the retirement plan, but you'd have to pay taxes on the entire $1 million on that growth of that business. The RAP program converts the money to a Roth vehicle. Now, let's say that we're doing an SBA loan and you're doing a $100,000 investment, or let's say you're doing a $200,000 investment and you got to come up with a $40,000 down payment. You can literally use as little as $10,000 from your retirement funds, or use cash. You don't even have to have retirement funds for the RAP program. And you create a Roth vehicle where the business is owned by the Roth retirement plan. Now you fast forward, the business sells for $1 million. That entire $1 million now is forever tax-free. It's not only exempted from capital gains tax, which politicians have been trying to double, but it's also exempted from income tax. And many economists like myself believe that tax rates are going to increase because we're moving toward a culture of wanting free healthcare, free education, free daycare, free cookies, free ice cream. They're even talking about free universal basic income. All this free stuff is not going to be free, and they'll probably have to raise taxes to do that. There's not many buckets of money left to go after except for traditional IRAs. And traditional IRAs are going to be subject to taxes. Plus, they are penalizing people already. People that have money in their traditional IRAs can have their Medicare premiums doubled for money that comes out of traditional IRAs. Roth retirement plans are never subject to being used as a calculus to double your Medicare premiums. Plus, a very distinct advantage of a Roth is Roths provide lifelong wealth protection for the spouse and the children beyond the grave. Traditional IRAs are only protected to 72 years of age. At 72 years of age, we have to do what's called a required minimum distribution, or RMD. When that happens, the money's forced out of the protection of the retirement plan into an unprotected checking or savings account. My concern with that is going to happen sometime in the future when tax rates may be higher. And it's also happening at the very decade of your life where your healthcare costs could literally increase tenfold. So at a time of your life where these risks are growing exponentially, traditional IRAs don't provide the long-term protection that a Roth does. And the other benefit for all us parents out there If you have a traditional IRA and something happens to you, according to payscale.com, children are often at their peak income, their peak tax rates when the parents pass away. If they're at their peak income and peak tax rate and they inherit $1 million from their parents, you've literally pushed your kids into the highest tax bracket. They could lose half of their inheritance. But money in a Roth is not only protected from future creditors, but it goes directly to the children, bypasses federal and state tax collectors. The children often end up with double the net inheritance. Now, for all the wives out there, in America, the average husband is 2 years older than the average wife, but women outlive men by 5 years. Here's what's devastating for families that's growing at an alarming pace. This was just reported by the American Journal of Public Health. Bankruptcy due to healthcare since the 1990s has exploded. It's now up to 67%, up from 22% of all bankruptcies in America are due to healthcare related issues. This is going to accelerate due to advancements in medicine. There is no longer any concern about surviving major life-threatening illnesses. The problem is we are surviving multiple life-threatening illnesses, and we're spending more money the last 3 years of our lives than we spend the entire previous 70 plus years of our lives combined. Now, for surviving spouses, if something happens to the husband, the wife is often moving into the point of her life where she's also now starting to have healthcare related issues, with one major differential. Single spouses are 3 times more likely to need assisted care because they don't have a spouse there to take care of them. And assisted care costs can be thousands of dollars per month. And so this becomes a major issue. Having literally double the net inheritance to provide you double the buying power to pay for these types of services at the end stage of your life, reduce the risk that you're going to be a burden on your children. So the combination of these things help you to accumulate, accelerate, protect wealth, and mitigate taxes. More importantly, most people that have built wealth in traditional 401ks. 401ks were great back in the 1970s. Anytime you put money into a 401k, you have to pay payroll tax on every deduction you make into a 401k. Now, this wasn't an issue when we were only paying 1% to 2% in payroll tax, but now it's exploded up to 15.3%, and politicians are trying to increase it up to 23%. So you're instantly losing money when you're putting money into 401ks, robbing you of the ability to grow that. Conversely, we're going to design programs for you that 95% of Americans do not have access to. To be quite direct, in my opinion, these are things our crooked politicians have done to pad their wealth, reward their campaign donors, protect their families, but they don't give it to the very voters that voted them into office. And rather than being limited to roughly $19,000 to $20,000 per year, we're going to show how a husband and wife can literally put up to 10 times more money per year from the profits of their business directly into a retirement plan compared to a 401k or an IRA, 100% exempted from these payroll taxes. This can literally put tens of thousands of dollars in your pocket each and every year, cash money that many people are throwing away.
That's fascinating. So when my people and when anybody else out there is looking to get a loan for a business, get the business started, there's more they need to think about than just how much can I get to get that business going? I've got to think long term. I'm going to make this business happen. It's going to work. Now, after I make some money, what's going to happen at that point? So don't go in with the mindset of I just want to get a loan. I just need some money now. From what it sounds like from you told us, that we need to look long term. What are we going to do with it once we get it growing? Because we are going to grow. We are going to make it happen. Absolutely fascinating on that. So good exit strategy then is essential, right? Go ahead.
I often tell people it's sometimes better to pay the tax on the seed than to pay the tax on the harvest, especially in an environment where the tax rates on the harvests are going up. I'm a farm boy from West Tennessee, so I use a lot of agricultural colloquial references. But I'm of the opinion, I've got 8 kids. I've told every one of my kids, don't leave money in traditional IRAs or traps. And politicians are starting to eye 401ks and IRAs and literally implying that people that have millions of dollars in their retirement funds don't need Social Security benefits. My opinion is Social Security are not a benefit. It's something we paid into with a promise that we'd receive it.
Right.
And my concern is that the way they wrote the law with traditional IRAs and 401ks is they can literally start to take those benefits away from you. But when the Roth retirement plan was written in the 1990s, Senator Roth in the state of Delaware saw what was happening, and he wrote the rules to, in particular, protect consumers. I'm personally a much bigger advocate for the RAP than the Roth, but of course, accountants prefer 10-to-1, and my background's accounting. I'm more concerned with where I will be in the future. I don't mind sometimes paying the tax on the front end to save hundreds of thousands of dollars on the back end. Real life story, 2 different clients, both ended up selling their businesses for close to $3 million. One company, one guy had started a business for the traditional wives program, ended up buying multiple, ended up with a dozen haircutting franchises, and then sold them. He literally cost him over $600,000 in taxes when he sold them, and closer to $700,000. The other guy set his business up through a RAP. He did a storage business, sold it. He sold the business, took 100% of the tax-free. He will never pay a single dime on any of that money. And all that money he's selling his business. He's at 55 years of age. Now that money's going to continue to grow for him for the rest of his life, and all that growth will be taxed. Now, here's the other distinct advantage. This is one of the most important things to understand about a RAP. And it's, let's say you've got a business and everybody has a certain standard of living. Let's say your standard of living is $100,000, but the business now has done $100,000. Now it's going to do $200,000. You could take that extra $100,000 out, but you're going to be pushed into the 24+% tax bracket, plus 15.3% payroll tax. So now you're at close to 40%. And on top of that, you're going to pay an average of 6% state income tax. So now you're going to be paying close to 46% in taxes. Instead, once you take out enough money to live on, rather than taking that money out as income, losing 46%, you end up with only $54,000 in an unprotected checking or savings account. Any growth in a savings account is taxable. So you get hit on taxes again. Instead, we take the money out as a dividend. This is the reason, it's what I call a Warren Buffett move. Many people may remember Warren Buffett saying that his secretary pays a higher tax rate than he does. Wealthy people do not pay taxes on their income. They pay taxes on dividends. So we take the money out literally at about a 27% tax rate. You cut your tax rate by about 40%. But here's what's incredible. That money, instead of only having 54 or 53,000, now you've got 73,000. You've got almost 40% more money, and that money is going into a federally protected account that can never be seized by creditors beyond the grave, and it's growing tax-free. So a savings account could take literally 20 years to double, but a Roth retirement plan can double its value literally in 8 to 9 years based on current growth trend. So this is, when you become an entrepreneur, you got to start thinking like an entrepreneur. The number one mistake I find with entrepreneurs that I've helped them exit their business is that they were in such a hurry to get into a business, they weren't thinking about their exit strategy. What you do on the front end will dramatically impact you by hundreds of thousands of dollars on the back end. And more importantly, to be quite direct, a large number of people that come to us are often the men. Often we're seeing a larger number of women coming to us. That's a great thing to see because they're taking control of their long-term security. To be quite direct, there is no security in the JOB. And peak incomes are dropping dramatically. The peak income for men has dropped from 57 years of age to 48 years of age. The peak income for women is now 39 years of age. Wow. So once you reach those ages, the risk of your income starting to drop starts to grow exponentially. So this is a reason I'm a big advocate of being a business owner. Take that wisdom, that work ethic, that experience that you have, go out and build wealth for yourself, not for somebody else. There is no job security in the JOB anymore, but you work with experts like Greg who can help filter the good from the bad. Greg tends to work with companies that have probably over 90% success rate. 50% of businesses that open are out of business within 5 years, according to a 20-year study by the Department of Labor. So what you want to do is always partner with experts to help avoid making those costly mistakes. To be quite direct, you don't know what you don't know. So work with experts, people that have been where you're about to go, and use them as counsel. I encourage you to review the expertise, my personal expertise on LinkedIn. Go to our website. You can go to Google Maps. You can pull up our profile where you go to Google Maps and it asks you to type in an address. Just type in Benetrends Financial. We have an incredible 4.8 out of 5.0 Google review rating. Not too bad for a company that's been around for 40 years. We're the only one-stop funding resource ever publicly endorsed by the International Franchise Association. But we're here to help you live that dream and build wealth for you and your family. But the problem is, it's the kind of the joke, show me the money. In order to get into the ballpark, you got to have the price of the ticket. And we can help you, show you how to leverage your current resources to help you buy a bigger, better business, or buy the rights to a multi-unit operation and accumulated. A lot of people I talk to were people, to be quite direct, have never wanted to own a business, but they got caught up in some type of downsizing, or their employers aren't treating them the way they should, or you're seeing your wealth or your salaries decrease because of inflation and other factors. Folks, that's going to continue. You're not going to control your destiny by being an employee. The way you control your destiny is by being an employee. And Greg will help you find the right business. I'll help you raise the capital to get there. What other questions do we have for the audience today, Greg?
Larry, I think that's it. There's just one thing I was curious about. When you're taking out dividends versus the payroll, is there a balance there that the IRS is looking for? Can you take it all out in dividends, or do you have to throw a little bit of payroll in there?
You have to pay yourself a minimum payroll. It's minimum wage times 1,000 hours in order to qualify for this program. They don't want you to be, you have to pay yourself a reasonable salary for a manager in that position. But there's people that take hundreds of thousands of dollars out in dividends. Understand, you're still paying taxes. It's not like the government's not getting taxes. They're getting corporate tax. And every state's different. There's some states that have no corporate tax, other states that do have corporate tax. And I can have that conversation with you. I can help you understand the tax rules and what have you. The strength I bring to the table is I've been where you're about, been in the franchise industry for decades. I'm very familiar with the process. I'm familiar with the tax laws in almost every state across the country. I'm not here to be your tax attorney or your tax expert or your CPA or attorney. We still want you to have a CPA, to have an independent review, but I can often save you some money by helping you understand some options and how to put together a structure and strategy to help you accumulate, accelerate, mitigate taxes, and protect that wealth. And in my opinion, in this new economy, protection of wealth, especially with the explosion of the tripling of bankruptcy due to healthcare related issues, in my opinion, healthcare is going to be the primary reason that many families will be left destitute. And unfortunately, we've learned this a hard way with my own family. Father-in-law had a life-threatening illness. They said he had 6 to 8 more months to live. They brought him home, brought a live-in nurse. The wonders of medicine kept him alive, not for 6 to 8 months, but for 2 years. That cost was over $500,000. It devastated decades of savings just like that. Then 2 years later, mom developed dementia and went into a nursing home. Dementia, or not nursing home, an assisted care facility. That was over $6,000 a month. She survived in an assisted care facility for 6.5 years. The good news is a couple of kids had the resources to help keep mom in a decent place. But for most families, they're not going to have those resources. But again, I think wealth protection in combination with tax strategies are incredibly important. But all of it's mute unless you have the right business. That's the reason you have to work with Greg's an award-winning broker, expert. He's been doing this for years and years to help you filter the good from the bad. And together we'll help you get to the finish.
We do make a good team, Larry, and lots of good information. You heard it from Larry, how to get a hold of him at bettertrends.com, or just reach out to me and I'll set up an introduction to Larry and he can fill you in and get you started. Larry, I do appreciate all your time today and a lot of great information. Very valuable. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Greg. Have a great day. Happy New Year.
You too, Larry. Take care.